He pressed the metal into my palm and closed my fingers around it like he was tucking me into a lie. "Mom," my son said, steady as a newsreader, "they're not yours anymore." For a second I only heard the clock in the hallway, tick-tick, counting me out of my own house. The keys felt warm from his hand. My teacup on the table had gone cold. Somewhere in the kitchen the fridge hummed like it knew something I didn't. I looked at him. Not mine. He lifted his chin, like he'd practiced in a mirror. "It'll be easier for everyone. Taxes. Paperwork. We already handled it." Handled it. Funny choice of words. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg. I slid the keys into my pocket, gentle as a secret, and I smiled the kind of smile a woman wears to a funeral. Quiet, respectful, final. "Baby," I said, "if this house doesn't belong to me, why do these still open every door?" He blinked. His eyes flicked to the front table, where a thick envelope sat half-hidden under yesterday's mail. Courier slip. I could see the corner of a form peeking out, like a white tongue. Transfer of deed. Not my handwriting. Not my plan. I felt something settle inside me. Not anger. Arithmetic. Years of help. Months of excuses. One final disrespect. And I remembered a voice that never failed me when life tried to get slick. I reached for my phone. "Before you finish that sentence," I told him, "I'm going to make one call." Now, if you're listening to me for the first time, welcome. Mama Perle. I tell the truth soft, and I set my boundaries firm. Tell me where you're listening from, baby, because this next part, it might save someone's home. I tapped the number I knew by heart. It rang once. "Mr. Dalton," I said when he answered, Sunday. "My son just told me my house isn't mine. Would you kindly explain to him what belongs to me?" People think theft is a single moment. Hand in a pocket, box out the door. No, baby. The worst kind walks in slow and polite, carrying cupcakes. It started 3 years back, when Evan called me from a parking lot with rain on the line. "Just for a little while, Mom," he said. "Till the business lifts." A mother hears hope and pulls out her purse. I covered $1,200 a month, so they wouldn't fall behind. First month, then a season, then a year. By the second Christmas, I was paying gas, light, and water, all in my name because the company's EIN is delayed. I even put $8,000 down on a used SUV so my grandbabies wouldn't ride in a car that coughed. Do I regret helping? No. I regret how they measured my kindness. There were little things, receipts with no totals, packages arriving with my address and their LLC printed bold. Pearl and Company, LLC. I never signed anything with my name and their and company. I asked about it. Lena laughed. "It's just branding, Mama Pearl. You're the heart." Funny how branding can feel like binding when you didn't tie the knot. Then the stories began to rhyme. The bank app is glitching. The landlord lost the check. The client pushed the payment. Every time, I stepped in like a human band-aid. I started keeping a little notebook, not because I expected a fight, but because math is what love looks like when love needs glasses. $1,200 times 36 months equals $43,200. Utilities. Average $310 per month times 24 months equals $7,440. Plus that $8,000 down payment. You don't notice a tide while it's lifting your boat, until you see the dock drifting away. The last clear day came 2 weeks ago at the bank. I'd stopped by to fix my debit card. A young man sent me to a desk with a brass nameplate. MS Ortiz, Account Services. She had neat nails and eyes that didn't miss. We went through my questions, and then she paused. "Ms. Pearl," she said carefully, "before you go, do you want both signers to have transfer rights on this account?" I blinked. "Both." She turned her screen slightly, like a curtain opening to a bad play. There it was, a pending request to add co-owner. Lena Harper, access level full, justification household expenses. My name sat above it like a roof holding up a stranger's walls. Who submitted that? I asked. She checked. The request originated from a mobile device on your profile last Thursday at 8:42 p.m. It was saved, not finalized. We flagged it because the signatures didn't match your usual pattern. I felt heat rise, not hot like anger, hot like a stove you forgot you left on. I smiled at Ms. Ortiz the way women smile when they are turning the fire off. Thank you for telling me, I said. Please note on the account. No changes without in-person verification. And if anyone asks, tell them Mama Pearl learned how to read her own paperwork. Walking out, I noticed something else. A text from Evan. You home later? We should swing by with mail. Mail. The kind that comes in courier envelopes and pretends to be an invitation. That evening, I brewed tea and set out 2 cups. I wanted my hands warm for what I already knew was coming. When the doorbell rang, the hallway clock coughed the same old rhythm. Tick tick. And I thought, not this time. I would not be counted out in my own house. They stepped in smiling. He had that practiced chin. She had the paper smile you get when you think the notary stamp is stronger than a mother's backbone. We traded small talk like sugar packets, until Evan placed my keys in my palm, and said his rehearsed line. You've heard that part. What you didn't hear was the thought that slid across my mind like a note under a door. If they can file paperwork, so can I. And that's why, before his speech could finish marching, I dialed one number. The same voice that's walked me through every kind of weather. Mr. Dalton, I said when he answered. I think I just discovered a brand new definition of family. Tell me everything, he said. Oh, I plan to. Before that hallway scene with the keys, there was a quieter moment, soft as dust on a windowsill, that told me everything. It was late afternoon. Sun came through the sidelights like honey. I bent to pick up a small stack of mail, and there it sat on the entry table. A thick courier envelope, the kind that arrives with confidence and bad intentions. Return label, some downtown suite I didn't recognize. Recipient, Pearl Washington, spelled right, tone all wrong. I slid a butter knife under the flap and breathed in that new paper smell that always makes my heart brace. Inside, a cover letter, 2 forms, and a cheery yellow sticky note that read, Friday 10:30 a.m., bring ID. Easy. Baby, nothing honest ever calls itself easy. The first form wore a serious smile. Quitclaim deed unrecorded. Blank where my signature should be. Already filled where their name should be. Property description. My lot, my square footage, my life. The second page was a mobile notary appointment confirmation. Same Friday, same time. 2 grantors listed as if I were planning a party I didn't even know about. Contact number? Lena's phone. I set the papers down and pressed my palm to the wood table to keep from shaking. Not from fear, no. From the kind of focus you get when you finally see the picture all the puzzle pieces were trying to make. I read the cover letter twice, lips moving, the way my mama taught me when money was on the line. In the interest of simplifying tax liability and facilitating intergenerational transfer. There it was, the word they love to use when they're about to take something that doesn't belong to them. Simplifying. I poured fresh tea and let 3 thoughts settle like leaves. First, a quitclaim is a gift unless I get something real in return. And I wasn't about to gift my roof to anybody who couldn't name the color of the shingles. Second, a notary's stamp can't bless a forgery. If my pen doesn't touch that page, not even heaven could make it mine. Third, if they were bold enough to schedule a stranger to witness my signature, they'd be bold enough to pressure me into giving it. Across the room, a child's science project leaned against the wall. My grandson's cardboard volcano from last month. We'd poured vinegar and watched the foam run red down the sides while he squealed. I looked at those papers and thought, eruption. You can't stop it, but you can direct where the lava goes. I tucked the envelope back exactly as I found it. Then I did something I recommend to any woman whose gut just fell through the floor. I walked my house. I touched the mantle. I touched the door jamb where Evan's height is penciled in. 7 years old, 10-12 taller than me. I opened the cedar chest and breathed my mother's lavender on the old quilts. This is not nostalgia, I told myself. This is inventory. In the kitchen, I pulled the file binder from the top cabinet. Title, tax receipts, mortgage statements, home insurance. I slipped the binder into a tote. On a sticky note I wrote, "Bring binder, ID, phone charger. Do not sign anything not reviewed." I stuck it to my purse like a shield. Then the doorbell rang. Not yet the evening's performance. This was earlier. A courier dropping another sheet. Authorization to access premises for move-in preparation. Move-in preparation. The paper asked for a signature from an adult occupant, not owner. I smiled. Bless their hearts, I said to the empty room, and put it under the magnet on the fridge, unsigned, so the camera over the kitchen door could see it clear as church glass. The house was quiet, but something in me wasn't. I could feel the line drawing itself, straight and black, from the edge of my patience to the edge of my porch. There is a difference between helping your children and handing them the deed to your backbone. I sat at the table with that envelope and rehearsed the conversation I knew was coming. Lena would say, "It's better for taxes." I would say, "Show me the numbers." Evan would say, "Everyone does it." I would say, "Everyone can't afford me." I placed the keys on the table and imagined their weight leaving my hand. The thought made my stomach dip, like a car passing over a bridge you don't trust. That's when I decided on timing. I wouldn't argue in the doorway. I wouldn't shout in my kitchen. I would make my move first, with paper. The same way they tried to move me. You don't wrestle where your opponent is strongest. You write where the law is. So later, when they arrived with smiles and speeches and that envelope half hidden under the mail, you now understand why I didn't tremble. I had already seen Act 1. I knew where this play was trying to go. And when my son placed my keys in my palm and told me they weren't mine, I was ready, not with thunder but with something louder. Documentation. Which is why, the moment his sentence lined up with the lie on that paper, I reached for my phone and dialed one number. The only voice I wanted between me and a pen. "Mr. Dalton," I said when he answered. "I think my family just scheduled a notary for a signature I don't plan to give." His silence was brief, like a judge lifting a gavel. "Don't you sign a thing," he said. "And listen carefully. Here's what we're going to do." "Don't you sign a thing," Mr. Dalton said, voice smooth as a gavel slide. "Now breathe, Pearl. We'll do this like grown folk with paper." I let my shoulders drop. "Tell me where to start." "First," he said, "a quitclaim only works if you willingly sign. I want you to call your branch and add a note. No profile changes without in-person ID. Then review last 3 months of transactions. Flag anything you didn't authorize. Send me screenshots." "Yes, sir." "And Pearl? Change the front door code tonight. New locks if you can. Text me the make and model. I'll have our paralegal send you a step-by-step for the smart keypad. Write down who has which keys. That list will matter." I opened my notebook. The pen felt like a steering wheel. To do. Bank. Freeze auto transfers. Revoke pending co-owner requests. Pull statements 90 days. Highlight anomalies. Change door code plus list all key holders. Photograph any documents left in the house. One more thing, he added. Call the notary yourself. Confirm the appointment is canceled, or that you'll attend with counsel. We'll be there early. If they try to proceed without you, that's Exhibit A. Exhibit A, I repeated, and the words tasted like a locked door. We hung up and I dialed Ms. Ortiz. She picked up on the second ring, voice brisk, kind. "Ms. Ortiz, it's Pearl again. I need to put a freeze on all auto transfers, effective immediately. And please add a big note. No account changes without my in-person ID." "No problem," she said, keys clicking. "I also see a pending application to add a co-owner named," she paused, "Lena Harper. Do you want that withdrawn?" "Withdrawn and noted why, not authorized by owner." "Done," she said. "While I have you, would you like me to read out your last 5 transactions?" "Please." She listed them like raindrops. Groceries. Utilities. Pharmacy. Then a big one, $2,400, ACH to Pearl and Company, LLC. I closed my eyes. Date. Last Thursday. Memo. Expenses. I opened my eyes again, steady. Please email me a PDF of the last 90 days. And flag that $2,400 as disputed for internal review, until I deliver documentation. On its way. Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. And if anyone calls to ask why you're being so careful, tell them Mama Pearl learned how to read her own paperwork. She laughs softly. Noted. I hung up and opened the bank app. Screenshots, date, amount, memo saved in a fresh folder. House evidence. I printed the PDFs to my home printer, the pages sliding out like little truth sermons. I highlighted entries with a yellow pen that matched my patience. Bright, finite. Next, the door. I walked to the keypad and tapped in a new code. Not our birthdays, not our address, something only a woman would remember. The price of my first teaching paycheck. I wrote the code on a sticky note and sealed it inside an envelope labeled for Mr. Dalton. If anyone asked later how I changed it, we'd have proof of when. Then I made a key list on the next page of my notebook. Keys out. Evan 1, Lena 0, borrowed only, Mrs. Green spare for plants. Action. Retrieve Evan's copy. Replace cylinders if not returned by Friday. In the margin I wrote, no keys without kindness. I took pictures of the courier envelope, the quitclaim form, the authorization to access premises. Each photo got a timestamp and went into my evidence folder. Over the kitchen door, my little camera blinked its blue eyelash. I angled it slightly to catch the entry table clean. Then I dialed the number on the sticky note from the envelope. Mobile notary services. A woman chirped. Yes, hello. This is Pearl Washington regarding a Friday 10:30. I'll be attending with counsel. Please note. No documents may be presented for signature unless reviewed by my attorney beforehand. If that's an issue, we can cancel right now. A pause. Paper sounds. I've noted with counsel. Will you still need witnesses? My counsel will advise. Also, I'll need your ID verification procedure on record. Of course. Lovely. See you Friday. I ended the call and the house hummed again, quiet as a secret. My phone buzzed. Evan. You home tonight? We want to drop off some mail. I typed back, I am. Ring once and let yourselves in the front. I'll have tea ready. I added a dot, then deleted it. No extra sugar for this conversation. Before they arrived, I set the coffee table like I was hosting The Truth. 2 cups, 1 plate of butter cookies, and a manila folder with labeled tabs. Title/tax/bank/messages. On top, a blank legal pad at a pen placed sideways. Invitation and warning. I called Mr. Dalton once more. And they're on their way. Good, he said. Remember, you're not here to argue. You're here to listen and document. Ask questions they can't fake. Tax due date, parcel number, lender name. If they bluff, it goes in the notes. If they threaten, it goes in the notes. If they take anything, we call for a civil standby and I file an injunction. And if they hand me my own keys and call them someone else's? Smile, he said. And ask who pays the insurance premium next Tuesday. I laughed, a small one, the kind that oils a rusty hinge. Yes, sir. The porch light clicked on with the dusk. Headlights swept the living room wall like a tide coming in. The doorbell rang, one polite chime. I glanced up at the camera's blue blink, then down at the folder with its calm little tabs. I am not here to fight. I whispered to the house. I am here to write. I slipped my phone to record in my apron pocket, opened the door, and welcomed my son and his wife into the one place they seemed to have forgotten. My home. I don't fight with volume. I fight with verifiable nouns, dates, dollars, and document names. So while the kettle sighed, I built my little courtroom on the coffee table. First, the binder. Front pocket got a printout of my title. Inside, plastic sleeves labeled tax receipts, insurance, mortgage, bank, last 90 days. I slipped yellow sticky tabs on the right edges like teeth ready to bite. Every tab wore a date. Then I opened the bank PDFs Ms. Ortiz had emailed. My printer coughed truth onto the tray. March 7th, $1,200 ACH, rent help. Approved by me. March 19th, $2,400 ACH, Pearl and Company. LLC expenses highlighted. April 2nd, $310 utilities. Autopay, approved by me. April 14th, $600 L. Emergency tires, approved by me. April 18th, $2,400 ACH, Pearl and Company. LLC, expenses, highlighted, circled twice. I wrote pattern in the margin. Thieves love a rhythm. Next, I photographed the quitclaim packet front and back, the mobile notary confirmation, and that cute little move-in authorization that thought it was important. Each picture auto-stamped the time. I airdropped everything into a folder titled House Evidence and backed it up to a drive I keep in a recipe tin marked flour. Let them look for sugar. The proof sits in the baking aisle. I called the notary again, polite as sweet tea, to request email confirmation that counsel would attend. For my records, I said. She sent it within 5 minutes. I printed that too. Paper is the opposite of rumor. Now for the house itself. I walked it like a museum guard at closing time. Living room. Photo of the cedar chest my grandmother kept quilts in. Dining room. Photo of the china cabinet. Drawer slightly open, inventory list visible. Bedroom. Photo of the jewelry box and the serial number card tucked beneath. Front hall. Photo of the key rack. One hook empty, noted as Evan's copy. I also angled my little door camera so it could see the entry table, the envelope, and the faces that reached for it. If a hand touched what didn't belong to it. We were going to church on Monday, with a judge for a preacher. Then I prepared my questions, the kind you can't bluff your way around. What's the parcel number on this property? When is the second half property tax due and how much? Which insurer holds the home policy, and what's the monthly premium? What's the lender name on the mortgage note, and when was my last payment posted? I wrote the answers blank, waiting like traps with velvet lids. Finally, I opened a fresh page in my notebook and wrote the heading, Event Log. 6:12 p.m., prepared binder, printed bank docs. 6:27 p.m., notary email received, printed. 6:35 p.m., camera angled, entry table in frame. 6:41 p.m., text from Evan. On the way. A woman can be soft and still be ready. I laid 2 cups, added sugar, and set a small plate of butter cookies as a kindness I would not confuse with consent. Headlights swept the window. The bell rang once. They came in with a breezy chill like people entering a hotel lobby they didn't pay for. Evan kissed my cheek. Lena gave a smile that didn't reach payroll. There's some mail, Evan said, placing the courier envelope back on the table like a cat gifting you a bird it didn't catch. I see it, I said. We'll get to it. We sat. I slid the binder forward, open to the title tab like a pianist lifting the fallboard. I have a few questions just so I understand, I said, voice Sunday soft. Since you believe it's easier for taxes, help me with the basics. I tapped the legal pad. Parcel number? Lena spoke first. We don't have that memorized, obviously. Of course, I said and wrote doesn't know parcel no. On the line. Property tax, second half due when and for how much? June. Evan guessed. I wrote, guess June. Actual, July 31st, $1,146.22, and slid a copy of the tax card from the sleeve, so the numbers would stare. Which insurer carries the home policy, and the monthly premium? Silence does a trick with guilt. It stretches. Mom, Evan started. I smiled with my lips, not my eyes. Don't strain yourselves. This is why I keep paper. I turned the next tab. Home Secure Mutual, $128 per month. Lena reached for the courier envelope. The camera over the kitchen door blinked its little blue eyelash. I let her fingers rest on the flap before I said, We're not opening that yet. Her hand stilled. Why not? Because you don't open a gift that wasn't given. I slid the bank statements into the light. Yellow lines glowed like crosswalks. Tell me about these, baby. $2,400 to Pearl and Company, LLC twice. That's business, she said. Our business. Funded by whose money? I asked. The question didn't bite. It simply looked at them. Evan's mouth opened shut. We're going to pay you back. I know, I said. Because I'm going to teach you how. I tapped the binder. But first I need you to hear me. Nothing with my name moves without my signature. And nobody adds themselves to my money while calling it simplifying. I pulled one last document from the back sleeve. A prepared letter Mr. Dalton had emailed me to print. Revocation of permissions and notice of policy. In plain English, It said what love sometimes needs help saying. No keys without kindness. No access without respect. All changes in writing. All signatures in person. I signed it in blue ink while they watched. The color matters. Black looks like copy, blue looks like decision. I slid a second copy across the table. For you, I said. So there's no confusion later. Lena gave a laugh with no sugar. This is ridiculous. What's ridiculous? I said gently. Is trying to move into a house you didn't build. Using a pen you didn't earn. The door camera chimed, a soft push alert on my phone. I glanced down. A truck idled at the curb. Two men climbed out in matching shirts, the kind with movers stitched over the pocket. I turned the phone so only I could see and let a smile warm just one side of my mouth. Looks like your plans are bigger than this conversation. Evan stood too quick. We should, check the driveway. You do that, I said, flipping my notebook to a clean page titled Movers, Arrival. And when you come back in, bring me my keys. The ones you said aren't mine. He swallowed. Mom, I'll be right here, I told him, tapping the binder. With the only thing louder than a raised voice. They came back in writing a draft of Cold Air and Attitude. Evan set the envelope on the table like it was a trophy he hadn't earned. Lena hovered near the doorway, watching the street the way a fisherman watches a bobber, waiting for the movers to bite. I folded my hands and kept my voice Sunday soft. Let's finish what we started. Evan cleared his throat, spine stiff with borrowed courage. Mom, this is just consolidation. It's better for everyone. We already handled it. That word again, I said. Handled. I slid the title tab into the light. Tell me the parcel number on my deed. Silence. A blink. Who pays second half property tax when and how much? Mom, no one knows that offhand, he said. I do, I said, laying the card down. July 31st, $1,146.22. Lena exhaled sharp. This is performative. This is paperwork, I replied, and tapped the next tab. Home Secure Mutual, $128 per month. Lender, Madison First. Last payment posted April 1st. That's what owning looks like, baby. Names, dates, numbers. I turned my pen sideways on the legal pad. Now I have 3 simple questions. Please answer yes or no. Lena folded her arms. Fine. 1. Did I sign a quitclaim deed to give you this house? No, she said. 2. Did I authorize anyone to add themselves to my bank accounts? No. 3. Did either of you pay the insurance, taxes, or mortgage in the last 12 months? Evan stared at the envelope as if the answer might crawl out of it. No. Good, I said. That makes this next part quick. I lifted the revocation and policy letter and read the key line out loud, slow enough for the camera to keep up. No keys without kindness. No access without respect. All changes in writing. All signatures in person. Lena reached for the courier envelope again. The blue eyelash over the kitchen door blinked. My phone buzzed, a motion clip saved. I placed my fingers lightly on the flap and shook my head. We're not opening a gift that wasn't given, I said. Not in my living room. Outside, a truck door slammed. Movers' voices floated in like seagulls, light, careless, hungry. I stood, and the room stood with me. Before we involve strangers, I said, let's test the story you brought. I slid my house keys out and set them on the table. They glinted like little sentences. If these aren't mine, they shouldn't work. I picked them up, walked to the hall closet, and turned the key. Click. Open. The cedar smell greeted me like a choir after the prelude. I closed it, turned the deadbolt, and faced my son. Would you like to try? I asked. Lena's mouth twitched. That's not how. It's exactly how, I said. Ownership turns and things open. Evan's jaw worked. You're making this harder than it has to be. No, I said, sitting back down. I'm making it legal. A hard knock. Then another. The front door rattled once. Someone testing the handle. I raised my voice just enough to be heard without sounding ruffled. Who's there? Moving crew, ma'am. A cheerful voice called. We're here for the prep authorization. I looked at the unsigned paper under the magnet and smiled with one corner of my mouth. Not today, sugar. I turned to Evan. You invited workers to a house you don't own to move items that don't belong to you. That's 3 bad sentences in a row. I picked up my phone and pressed speaker. Mr. Dalton? We've reached the part with visitors. His voice came through steady as oak. Are they inside? Not yet. Good. Let them wait. If anyone enters or removes property without consent, we call for a civil standby, and I file an emergency injunction. Meanwhile, read the notice to your guests. I opened the folder's back pocket and pulled out a printed notice of trespass and revocation of permission, signed and dated today. I walked to the door, cracked it so the chain still held, and read clear. This residence is privately owned by Pearl Washington. No person is authorized to enter or remove property without written consent from the owner. Violations will be reported. Understood, ma'am, the voice chirped, deflating. Footsteps retreated. When I turned back, Lena had lost the shiny part of her smile. Evan's eyes were wet and angry, the kind that make mamas forget and forgive. I let my love stand beside me, not in front of me. Sit, I said. We did. I slid the bank statements across one more time and tapped the yellow bars. 2 withdrawals, $2,400 each, to Pearl and Company, LLC. I have flagged them for review. Starting tonight, all auto transfers are frozen. If your business needs money, you will send an invoice with a due date and a purpose. I will pay what I agree to, not what you assume. Evan's voice cracked. We were going to pay you back. I believe you, I said softly. But belief is not a payment method. He sagged. And for a breath, I saw my boy at 7, pockets full of marbles he'd borrowed from the neighbor's kid, chin trembling the same way. Back then we walked hand in hand to return them. Today, we were returning something else. Boundaries. Here's what happens next, I said, sliding a final page across. Repayment plan proposed, with small numbers that real people can keep. If you want help, we'll do it on paper. If you want this house, you'll have to wait until God and the county say I'm finished with it. The camera blinked again. Outside, the truck engine shut off. I capped my pen. And for tonight, bring me my keys. Evan stared at me, then reached into his pocket. Metal kissed wood. He set them down between us like an apology that hadn't learned its words yet. I pulled the keys back to my side of the table without ceremony, the way a tide reclaims a shell. Thank you, I said. We'll take a short break before the next scene. It's a notary one, and I like to be early. We arrived 20 minutes early, me with my binder, Mr. Dalton with a briefcase that looked like it had seen more lies than rain. The notary office was quiet, just a fern and a clock that respected itself. Mr. Dalton laid down his card and said, calm as a hymn, before anything, please note, this signer attends willingly. Will require ID verification on camera, and a copy of every page before pens touch paper. Evan and Lena swept in 5 minutes later, dressed like a victory that hadn't happened. The notary opened the envelope. Quitclaim, transferring interest from Ms. Washington to no one today, Mr. Dalton said, smiling. Ma'am, read the first requirement back to us. She glanced at the form I'd requested. Signer must appear in person and affirm intent. That's me, I said. And my intent is no. Lena's voice went bright and brittle. It's just simplifying taxes. Then you'll love this, I said, sliding over my revocation of permissions and the bank note confirming the withdrawn co-owner request. Simple. Evan tried a softer angle. Mom, we already told the movers. Mr. Dalton lifted a finger. And there it is. Pressure. He turned to the notary. Please record that the signer is being pressured, and that this appointment is terminated at the signer's request. The notary capped her stamp like a priest closing a book. Appointment cancelled. Lena exhaled through her nose. Fine. We'll figure out another way. Make sure it's a legal one, I said, standing. Because this pen only moves for love and law, in that order. Outside, the sun felt cleaner. Mr. Dalton squeezed my shoulder. Paper wins, Pearl. Go home. Change nothing. If they push again, we file. I nodded, keys warm in my palm. Let them push on paper, baby. I'll meet them there. I turned the corner onto my street and saw it. A box truck idling in front of my porch like a vulture that brought its own ladder. Two men in matching shirts headed up my steps, clipboard first, manners second. I pressed record on my phone, angled it to the door camera, and walked up slow Sunday slow. Afternoon, ma'am. One said cheerful. We've got move-in prep for Miss Harper. That's adorable, I smiled. Miss Harper doesn't live here. Ido. He glanced at the clipboard. We have authorization. I do too, I said, and held up my own. Notice of trespass signed, dated, readable at 10 paces. No entry, no removal without owner consent. Across the street, Mrs. Green watered her begonias extra loud. Community theater had an audience. The door camera chimed. Motion clip saved as Evan tried the keypad. It blinked red. New code. He swallowed. Keys, I said, palm open. He placed them there like they were hot. Lena marched up with the courier envelope again. We already scheduled the master for our furniture. Sugar, I said kindly. You can schedule a moon landing if you want. The county still calls this my house. I dialed non-emergency police and requested a civil standby. There's a misunderstanding with movers, I explained. No one stepping inside. We'd just like peace on paper. The movers backed down a stair each time my sentence ended. Professionals know when a tip has turned into testimony. Patrol rolled up, common blue. I showed title, ID, the revocation letter, and the camera clip of the keypad fail. The officer nodded. Ma'am's the owner. No entry today. Lena's smile cracked. Evan stared at his shoes. I locked the door, click, and the sound felt like a prayer answered with hardware. Thank y'all for coming, I told the officers and the movers. We're finished here. We weren't, not completely. But the street knew the score now, and so did the paper. Tomorrow would be louder, on their side. Mine would stay the same. Calm, documented, and locked. Morning came with the sound of my printer. Pages marching like a little paper army. Mr. Dalton filed the emergency injunction at 8:05 a.m. By 9:12, I had a stamped copy in my inbox and a fresh print on my kitchen table. The title line sang like a hymn. Temporary restraining order. No entry, no transfer, no removal. I slid it into my binder's front sleeve where even a liar could read it. At 10 o'clock, my door camera blinked, blue eyelash, new clip. The box truck had crept back like a bad thought. I didn't rush. I opened the door after I pressed record, and set my phone on the table facing the hall. Good morning, I said, voice smooth as oatmeal. Before y'all lift a finger, read this. I held the injunction up to the glass storm door. Bold letters. Today's date. My name. A judge's squiggle that means don't test me. One mover read out loud, slow. No person shall enter, remove, or interfere, under penalty of. He stopped himself. We'll be in the truck. Evan and Lena came from the sidewalk. Quiet now, apology mixed with anger, the cocktail of consequences. Mom, he started. I shook my head once. This is not a kitchen conversation. This is court paper. The kind that only moves when people do. I called non-emergency again and asked for a civil standby to supervise the return of any items already removed. Mrs. Green gave me a thumbs up from her porch, like we were at the good part of a movie. The officers arrived with the weather. I laid out title, ID, injunction, revocation letter, and yesterday's camera clips. One officer nodded at the binder. Ma'am's prepared. We'd like all items returned that left this residence without consent, I said, pointing to the cedar chest in the truck bay. Starting with that. Yes, ma'am, the officer said to the movers. The chest came back first, cedar breathing relief as it crossed the threshold. Then a china box, then my linen tote I hadn't even noticed missing. I checked each against my inventory list and initialed the line. Documentation. While we worked, Mr. Dalton called. I put him on speaker. Pearl, the injunction is served. If they try anything else, it's violation. After the return, change the locks. Replace the cylinders, not just the code. I'll email a notice of policy to post inside the door. Already printing, I said, and the house purred in agreement. Evan's voice was small. We didn't mean for it to go this far. I know, I said gently, but didn't mean can't hold a roof. Paper can. By noon, the truck was lighter and my foyer was heavy with restored things. I signed the mover's return acknowledgement, and the officer noted no further disturbance on his report. Last step. I told the house, and fetched the new lock set from the bag. The old cylinder came out with a soft clink. History in a bowl. The new one settled in with a confident click. I turned the key once, home twice secure. Then I posted Mr. Dalton's notice of policy inside the door at eye level. No keys without kindness. No access without respect. All changes in writing. All signatures in person. I stood back and read it like a blessing. On the porch, Evan cleared his throat. What do we do now? You start with paper, I said. I handed him a slim sheet, repayment plan proposed. Numbers they could actually meet. Small, steady, adult. And you start with behavior. I added softer. Because love without boundaries just bankrolls disrespect. Lena looked away. Evan nodded, eyes glassy. Okay. The officers tipped their hats. The truck pulled off, embarrassed by daylight. Mrs. Green blew me a kiss with her watering can. I locked my door and slid the injunction into my binder. The house exhaled, and so did I. Paper didn't shout. It didn't threaten. It just stood, like a good wall around a garden that feeds you. And for the first time in weeks, my tea tasted like tea. Not like worry. Not like grief. Just there. By evening, the house sounded like itself again. Floorboards with old stories, the fridge humming in a friendly key. Peace is loud when you've missed it. I made one more pot of tea and laid 3 things on the table. Repayment plan final, a calendar, and a small tin of keys. Evan came alone. No envelope. No speeches. He sat like a man who met his reflection and decided to stay. We can do $150 on the first of each month, he said, voice steady. Automatic from our account. I asked the bank how to set it right. Good, I said. We're paying back money, and we're paying back trust. Trust has more installments. We wrote it down like adults, due date, amount, what happens if it's late. He signed first. I signed second. Mr. Dalton's e-signature blinked in as a witness. Paper doesn't do hugs, but it holds you up. I pushed the tin of keys toward him and opened the lid. Pick the one that fits kindness, I said. He smiled despite himself. None of them. That's right, I said softly and closed the lid. Not today. He rubbed his eyes with the heel of his hand. I'm sorry, Mom. I received that, I said. Now show me every month, not every minute. We moved to the calendar and circled 3 dates. First payment, 15th check-in call, July 31st property tax reminder, mine to pay, not yours to guess. I wrote his name next to the middle date and handed him a pen. He wrote it again slower, like he wanted the ink to sink. At the door he paused. Lena, she'll need time. We all will, I said. Time is a good teacher when pride stops talking. He nodded, kissed my cheek like a son and not a strategy, and left quietly. No truck idling, no camera chiming, just dusk folding the porch into itself. I washed 2 cups. I put the binder back in the cabinet, still near enough to reach, far enough to forget. Then I walked my house the way you bless a room. Fingertips on the mantel, the door jamb with the pencil marks, the cedar chest that came home. I breathed in lavender, and let the day sit down. Here's my lesson, baby, recorded plain so you can carry it. Love is generous. Boundaries are how love stays honest. Help your children all you want, but help them face forward, not upward at your pockets. And when someone waves a form at your life, know this. A pen can only take what a backbone allows. If you're listening and your hands are shaking because someone tried to turn your kindness into a contract, breathe. Make a list. Call the number that keeps you safe. Start with paper. Start with you. Now tell me, what line did you draw that finally kept the peace? Drop it in the comments so another heart can borrow your courage. Mama Perl. Some truths don't shout, they knock. Thank you for letting me into your kitchen tonight. I'll see you next time with another story that remembers the rules. No keys without kindness. No access without respect. All changes in writing. All signatures in person.